Hello, welcome to Why Use 30,000 Foot Level Predictive Performance Reporting. I would like to welcome you guys and thank you for taking the time to join us today. I will first address some logistical issues for the session and then introduce our speaker, Mr. Forrest Breyfogle. Of course, we've got a lot of material planned for this 1-hour webinar, so the audio will be muted for the remainder of the presentation to ensure that Forrest is able to get through his entire presentation. But we will not be able to hear you, but you will be able to hear Forrest, and he does request your participation. Please send text questions through the system during the presentation, and we do value those, and we'll try to get through all of the questions by the end of the presentation. If we cannot answer your question by the end, we will either email or call you with a response. There will also be a recording of the webinar available on our website within 24 hours, and you're going to receive an email with a link to the recording. Please know that as a participant in this webinar, someone at Smarter Solutions will be giving you a call, and if you do not want us to contact you for any reason, please let us know that in the feedback survey at the end of the webinar. We appreciate your responses in that as well. I will now introduce our presenter, Mr. Forrest Breyfogle. In a professional career spanning over a quarter of a century, Forrest has established himself as a leading-edge thinker, a prolific author, an innovative consultant, a world-class educator, and a successful business executive. He's authored or co-authored over a dozen books. In his 14th book, The Business Process Management Guidebook, an Integrated Enterprise Excellence BPM System, Breyfogle presents an executable method for managing and benefiting the bottom line of business. This methodology was introduced in the 5-book set, Integrated Enterprise Excellence, that provides radical management advancements in the utilization and integration of scorecards, strategic planning, and process improvement. Forrest was named Quality Professional of the Year for 2011 by Quality Magazine. He received the prestigious Crosby Medal from the American Society for Quality in 2004 for an earlier book, which many of you know, Implementing Six Sigma. And Forrest is currently located here with me today in Austin, Texas, where he founded Smarter Solutions in 1992. Forrest is available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google+. And I will now turn the presentation over to you, Forrest.
Okay, thanks, Elon. The topic I'll be covering today is use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. What should Enron have done? They started playing games with numbers in the late 90s, and it cost them dearly the turn of the century. What should BP have done to prevent the oil spill that occurred a few years ago? More recently, what should Bluebell Ice Cream have done to have avoided the listeria problems of contamination that basically shut down their facility for several months and caused deaths? What I'm suggesting is we need to have a performance reporting system that cannot be gamed, and we can also get a real good picture throughout the organization, even at the high level, of what's really happening. What I'm suggesting, we need to use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. At the conclusion of this session, you should be able to better understand performance metrics that drives the right kind of behaviors, how you can go in and take this form of reporting throughout the organization, and then how you can improve the organization as a whole, so we got strategic projects so that the organization as a whole again will benefit. Let's start with an example. What are your thoughts about this scorecard? This is an actual scorecard. If you own this, what would you do with it? That's what I'm going to be asking in a polling question. So I'd like for you to select one of the 5 options that you have. Now, to make it easier, I'm going to walk through each one of these options. Would you assign someone to resolve the current reporting degradation of one or more of the metrics performance? Might you, as option 2, inform one or more process owners that they need to improve their process performance levels within a certain period of time? How about option 3, set up a meeting of all process owners who are not achieving their objectives so that action plans can be defined and undertaken to resolve the issue? Or maybe you'll pick option 4, if a metrics performance is strategic and needs improvement, ask the process owner for the status of efforts to improve the related process. Or finally, this scorecard reporting format is confusing and are not beneficial. Assign someone the task of determining a better scorecard and overall business improvement methodology. So now again, which of those 5 options would you choose?
So if you could go ahead and put in your pick there for that poll question. We'll give the poll a couple of seconds for everybody to input their answers and reveal those answers. Looks like most of the audience has voted now. We'll go ahead and close it and share those results. Couple of seconds here. Now, Forrest, I think you're going to be surprised.
Yes, very surprised. I think everybody agrees with me. It's number 5. I've given this illustration many times in workshops, and everybody always votes for number 5. But keep in mind, this is an actual scorecard that somebody or some organization has.
And again, as we go through your presentation, I just want to remind the audience, we do have a couple of poll questions. We appreciate your participation on that last question. And feel free to put in any questions you have in the chat windows.
Yes. Yeah, we like to get your feedback in here and address any questions or issues that you might have that come along during the presentation. Now, this scorecard that I just presented is one form and fashion that many organizations might have. And I think they all have similar issues. So let's go in and talk about what we might do different relative to performance metric reports. This is an actual scorecard. It seems like a good way to manage the business. You look at the latest time period, which is the farthest column in the spreadsheet to the right. If a color is red, it's not meeting its objective. Therefore, somebody needs to work on that particular process, because if it was green before and turned red, obviously something happened, right? Well, that's what we think anyway. So let's examine finance metric B. If we look at this metric, we notice we got 33% red and 50% green, so it's been toggling between red, yellow, and green for quite some time. Now the question is this special or common cause variability? Now, for those that have been in the quality profession for a while, they will recognize these terms as terms that was used by Dr. Edwards Deming. And that's used in control charts, so that's a term used in control charts. Now, what I'm suggesting is this is somewhat different than traditional control charts, which were to identify when special causes occur, stop the process, and fix the problem so that we can move on. Well, that's not what this is. This is what I call 30,000 foot level reporting. Creates a view of the Earth at a 30,000 foot level metric. So it's a high level view of your performance. To make sure we're all on the same page, I'd like to elaborate what's special and common cause variability to me. Let's consider the time it takes us to commute from home to work. It's going to take the same amount of time to the second every day. Well, no. Why? Well, we've got more delays because of traffic signals. We drove faster one day than the other, and so on. So let's consider it takes us 25 to 35 minutes. That's considered to be common cause variability. Now, if it took us an hour one day, we can talk about that. Maybe we had inclement weather or major traffic accident. But if we have anytime all the variability we have between 25 and 35 minutes, we shouldn't be talking about all those ups and downs perturbation. But let's say we wanted to reduce the amount of time it takes us to commute, so now we set a goal of 32 minutes. So it takes us 33 minutes, we'll say, what happened? We didn't meet our goal. It's 29 minutes, we don't talk about it because we met our goal. But I just said we shouldn't do that. But that happens all the time with red, yellow, green scorecards. We establish a goal within our common cause variability, and we get triggering between the red, yellow, and green colors. Now, if we've got common cause variability, we have to do something different to the process to make a change. So let's consider we decided to leave a half an hour earlier, and now we notice it takes us 18 to 22 minutes. So we've reduced not only the average time, but also the variability in time. So that's what we'd like to have, is a scorecarding system that presents information in this format, separates special and common cause variability. All the scorecards that I showed you previously don't do that. In addition, what we'd like to do is make an estimate of what we can expect in the future, understanding if we don't like what we predict in the future, we're going to have to do something different to the process. Red, yellow, green scorecards don't do this. So now let's take this scorecard, and I'm going to create an individuals chart. Now, for those that are familiar with statistical process control charting, they'd say, well, this is just a normal individuals chart. Well, yes, it is, but I'm doing it at a high level. Notice the observations are months, so it's a very high-level view of how we're performing. But given this form of reporting, we notice we don't have any trends relative to the UCL and LCL limits, or upper control limits and lower control limits. What does that mean? That means nothing's really changed in the process. One might say those 2 points that we have in the middle are higher, but statistically we can't say those are any different than the lower points. Keep in mind this is an actual scorecard. So the conclusion that we have now by looking at the data differently, nothing has changed, even though the red, yellow, green scorecard has toggled between the various colors. Now, if we have a stable process and it's got a recent region of stability, what we can say is our process is predictable. We can now use the information that we have, because we obviously want to figure out what we can predict. We can consider it to be a random sample of the future. So we can build a distribution. We turn that distribution on its side. And now that area that's less than 2.2 is the value that, or 2.2 is the value where it triggered red. So that area represents a frequency of occurrence that we expect red to occur not only now, but in the future. A better way of presenting this information is through a probability plot. Now, a probability plot might look intimidating initially, but it's quite simple. Notice we have the same scale on the x-axis, but what we do on the y-axis, we have percent less than. So it gives you directly the percentage of time that you'd expect it to be red. So basically now what we've concluded is our process is stable, and we've got about a 33% nonconformance rate relative to the 2.2 value, or about 33% of the time it's going to be red not only now but in the future. So by this presentation methodology, we have two steps to establish stability and how we're performing. Notice how we're presenting variability in how we report metrics, not only to the quality department but throughout the organization. So we don't want to have people reacting to all the ups and downs excursion as though they're special cause. Not any different than the commute from home to work illustration. Now, the way I like to present it is we got a statement at the bottom that describes how our process is performing. With our software, it basically does this automatically. We can create 30,000 foot level performance reporting quite easily by using our software, and then it makes a statement of how we're performing. If there's a signal that's beyond the control limits, then we say the process is not stable or it's not predictable. So what does this boil down to? Statement I made earlier. Use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. Let's take another example, 30,000 foot level reporting. Now in this particular illustration, there's no specification. So a 30,000 foot level report can still provide the variability of your process. So in this case, if you notice off the probability plot, we're picking percent values at 10, 50, and 90. Notice 90 minus 10 is 80. So the difference between those two x values that we have, or those percentages, represents the frequency of a time that we would expect it to occur. So we can make a statement at the bottom. The estimated median is 225,000 per month, and 80% of the events is between 213,000 and 237,000. This is dealing with the sales of several products. Where these metrics were taken from, that this illustration was taken from, is the table of numbers. So you can see we get a lot more information of how one of the metrics is performing using the 30,000 foot level reporting format. So again, come back to saying use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. As I mentioned, we have different forms of scorecard reporting. We have the table of numbers. We can have time series plots. We can have a table of numbers just looking at a series of data. We can have red, yellow, green scorecard. What I'm suggesting is there's an elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. We continue to look at these scorecards in this form and fashion, but more often than not, when you look at it, you conclude that you really can't make any sense from these scorecards. So the question is there a better way? And I'm saying yes, use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. Got another polling question for you. What type of scorecard reporting is the most common in your company or where you've worked? Red, yellow, green scorecards, table of numbers, Excel time series plots, 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting, or your organization might say, what are scorecards?
Great. We're getting great participation in this question. We appreciate it. Give a couple seconds here. I think we have almost everybody's participated here, and we'll go ahead and close this and share it. So here's our breakdown for us. We've got almost 60% using red, yellow, green, and 3% using 30,000 foot level.
Okay, well, it looks like somebody out there is taking our course and that they're using this, because we're pretty much the only ones that talk about 30,000 foot level, it seems like. Great, so now the majority is red, yellow, green scorecard. So you're hitting on one of my passions, and hopefully you can relate to what I'm talking about. And if you can or you still need me to elaborate on that, please text us so we can go in and do more elaboration on the methodology.
And we're happy to address the questions, and we will save some time at the end and within the presentation to address those.
Right. So what I've got also is 8 dashboard conversions. I talk about the conversion of this particular metric, which is looking at 4 different products. And one of these, the blogs that I wrote, gives you more detail about this particular metric and how you could go in to get more information by looking at 30,000 foot level metrics. Now, one of the questions that we've had already is how can I go in and sell my management on making process improvement? Well, one of the things is you can take your KPI that you have, key performance indicator that's important to them, and start looking at it differently. And then see what other kind of behaviors you can have, and then start talking to them and say, well, we may have triggered between red, yellow, and green here, but nothing's really changed. That's true more often than not. And if we really want to make a definite difference for that particular metric, we have to do process improvement efforts. So that's one good way of encouraging process improvement efforts, is not just trying to look at it from a Lean Six Sigma point of view relative to how much we save, but hey, we want to demonstrate how much we've actually improved the process by activities in the 30,000 foot level metrics is a good way to do that, and also the 30,000 foot level metrics, and demonstrating that nothing's really changed by the way we're currently looking at them. Then that can encourage process improvement effort for the metrics that's important to them as a business as a whole. Now I'm going to have my email address at the end, and also I can send you the links here, so you don't have to just write this particular link down, but I can send it to you later. Now one of the things that people might say, well, this is pretty hard to do. I want to demonstrate to you how we have this add-in. We can also send this to you too, where you can go in and get this add-in. It's shown at the top, EPRS right there. And what I'm going to do is go in Minitab and calculate some random data, normal data, make 30 data points here, store this in column 1, and then what I'm going to do is use this add-in to go in and show you how easy it is to create the charts that I just described. Okay, so I'm going to put in value of to C1 here, save it here, and then I'm going to go in and run it. So all I've got is basically some data in the first column. And then when we run it, we'll get this particular report out. Okay? So we might say, gee whiz, it looked like it made improvement, but we know this is random data. So I think it's rather interesting to have random data just look at it in Minitab, and you'll find that it looks like sometimes you have trends and you don't. So we want to now go in and not overreact. Okay, let's go in now and say, whoops, I want to do that. Put the wrong one. Okay, let's say I want to add some specifications to this. Okay, so now I'm going to put a specification of -1 and +1. Upper square limits is 1, and then put -1. Now I'm going to run it. Now notice when we don't have a specification here, what we get is the median and 80% frequency of occurrence. And if we do have a specification, then we put the specifications, and it automatically calculates the percentage of time that's going to be beyond the limits. So hopefully you can see the value of this add-in to Minitab on creating this form of reporting. And you gain so much more insight to this form of reporting than you do from traditional report outs. And again, we can send you a link so that you can download this software and install it as an add-in to Meeting tab at no charge. So just want to reiterate again, use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. The next question or topic I'm going to cover is how can we have whole enterprise performance metric reporting? How can we take this form of reporting and put it throughout the organization? What I'm suggesting is you want to have what I call a value chain. Now in this case, this example is a hospital value chain. We start with voice of the customer, sales and marketing, and so on. The main functions are connected across the top. The support functions are below. And what we like to do is make this clickable. We like to make it so that our metrics are automatically updated, perhaps like once a day, and that everybody has timely information and updated information of process performance at the 30,000 foot level. To illustrate what you might have is you click on Deliver Clinical Services for this particular hospital. You notice the top swim lane represents metrics relative to quality, cost, and time, and the bottom is a flow chart that's related to those metrics. We've got a Y here, we've got an X. We pulled together and we've got Y as a function of X. Notice how this is different than what we might have traditional within organizations where the north wing of the building is working on scorecards, the south wing of the building is working on process documentation improvement, and they don't talk to each other. If we were to click on a metric that we might have in there, wastage, we notice how we get a statement at the bottom. With our software, if we got one point that's just a little high, we can ignore it. In this case, what we did, we say our process predicted, and we got about 5.3% wastage per week. That's the way life is pretty much going to be unless we do something differently. Again, use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. Now what you really could have is more benefit if you have this form of reporting throughout the organization so it's tailored for your particular situation. So in other words, people don't have to just click through it. And they can do this in this. So let me show you how what the value chain might look like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, give me a second here. We had changed our so basically what I've got is that value chain that we got here. And so I can click through this value chain. And I can go in and start looking at the metrics and processes associated with it. So right now this is pulling from our server. So if I click on profit margins, notice I can go in and assign a color to this metric. In this particular case, profit margins went down. They were staged. Well, that's not good news. This is describing what we can expect in the future, but the question is, why did it go down? Let's look at our value chain and look at what we might have. Well, the voice of the customer dissatisfaction rate. Oh my goodness, customer dissatisfaction rates went up. Room cleanliness, unfriendly staff, and they spent a lot of time waiting. Some of the comments that we see down at the bottom here. Notice we can also email this to somebody else. If we notice this and there's a process owner or somebody else that should be notified. If you click on sales and marketing, look at our market share. Oh my gosh, it dropped. Well, what happened? Oh, we had a competitor move into town. what we've got down there. Well, that's given us a clue on what's happened. See how we're using data to make decisions. We already talked about deliver clinical services, but let's talk about length of stay. It's another way of looking at it. Now this way we've got more data for each of the weeks that we have, but we've got something that's still reported at the bottom. Now the question is, should we be working on this metric relative to our process improvement efforts to improve profit margins? Well, maybe you could say if I can have people stay longer in the hospital, then I get more revenue, which is probably true, but that may be a little bit unethical. So we're going to go back and assume we're going to have an ethical behavior, and there's probably nothing we should do to this particular metric. If we look at errors, we notice, now this is an attribute, pass or fail or count data, we notice that we dropped. Well, that's a good thing. But the thing is, could we have more improvement or better improvements to the profit margins by improving this? Well, probably not. So the point is, we're not going to have to improve every metric.
Great. Forrest, we do have a couple of questions here while we're here looking at this value chain. Explain to us a little bit more what this is we're looking at, what you call the value chain.
The value chain basically describes what you do and how you measure what you do. So what I've really got here from the hospital point of view at a high level, I say, first off, the voice of the customer. Then the thing is, they're going to have to sell and market their services. Okay. Then they go in and deliver clinical services. Then they invoice and collect. They got to get paid, right? Then they have to report financials. So those basic steps for a hospital is not different than what many manufacturing or insurance companies or other transactional operations will have. So what we want to do now is go in and look at the processes associated with that, and we're also looking at the metrics that are associated with those processes. So when you start out, you want to determine what functions you have at the high level, what the customer is really paying for. What are you doing? Now, in the case of the hospital, IT, for a hospital, they're not paying for it. But it's something that you need to do, so it's considered a support function. Housekeeping, food service, and patient transportation is something else I looked into. Now, I'm going to get into enterprise process management a little bit later. But this really describes what you do. And like if I click on it, then these are the metrics that I'm saying is what you want to go in and track relative to how well delivered clinical services is performing. And the process associated with how well we're doing, those metrics, those are shown below that, and those could be drill downs.
Great. Another question here. So based on your experience, how many metrics should we be looking at on the scorecard?
Well, the thing is, I think I don't think there's a definitive answer for that particular case. Sometimes people say, well, we just want to look at 3 things. I'm suggesting is that we want to go in and say, what realistic should we be looking at? It's not saying that you're going to be looking at every metric all the time, but what you would like to have it so that these are metrics that's automatically updated, not just the ones I'm really working on to improve. So I'm really looking at what are good metrics for this particular process relative to quality, cost, and time. And that could be quite a few metrics. Now you could start drilling down into various other functions, and that could have its quality, cost, and time metrics too. But again, that's the reason I'd like to have it so it's reported automatically.
Okay, and one more question here. This attendee says they have a software currently that looks at their metrics, and then they have a separate software that's looking at their processes. So this software you're showing is combining the two?
Yes, this software is not saying blowing up anything that you got already. But it would sit on the top of it. Like if you got an ERP system or spreadsheets or SQL databases, what it can do is pull from it so that now we're going to look at these particular metrics from a 30,000 foot level point of view. We're looking at them from a process point of view. Okay, and so when you make improvements, which is what you talk about, documentation and so on, you really now understand when you start looking at processes that you're going to have to change the processes associated with those metrics. So we're having measurement improvement needs, pulling for projects that's going to help improve metrics that are going to benefit the enterprise as a whole. Those become strategic projects.
Great. Well, thanks for the questions. Thanks for addressing those for us.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go through this value chain. I got some other information. Let's click on housekeeping. Again, I got the metrics associated with it. Cleaning quality. You notice how it's degraded. Well, that's not good. But if you recall, voice the customer said we had some cleanliness issues. Now, if we go in and look at patient transportation, diagnosis to bedtime, we really improved, but we want to be less than 30 minutes. 93% of the time said we didn't achieve that. So let's go back now and look at what you could have. With this approach, as I mentioned earlier, we could go in and use this approach to actually manage our systems. And what you can do now with this updated methodology that we have, so we've added some enhancements to our software, where now you can have, as shown on the right-hand side, you can have tailored metrics to your particular part of the value chain. The executives may be looking at one level. You got people at the lower level in the organization. They're looking at their particular aspect of the organization. And notice how we can go in and click through it, and it can link to the processes that you've already have or the documentation that you already have. So it's not like you need to start all over again. So our software has the aspect relative to metrics, but also it has flow charting capabilities too, and you can go in and create a high-level value chain, and you can link directly, or you can drill down further and have those linkages all already done, or create those linkages that can be executed by people throughout the organization. And you can assign it so that certain people can look at certain aspects of the value chain and not others. So now let's talk about improvement efforts so enterprise as a whole benefits. So if we drill down on this enterprise process management I had in the value chain, what I have is a 9-step system here. The first step is describe vision and mission. It's quite obvious. You probably already have one. The second one describes your value chain, including the satellite and 30,000 foot level metrics. That's what we've already been talking about. Satellite or financial metrics, and 30,000 foot level or operational metrics. Then what we want to do in step 3 is analyze the enterprise as a whole. So you're looking at your value chain, you're looking at the voice of the customer, you're looking at a theory of constraints that you might have. You're looking at the competition. Step number 4, you want to create smart, specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely satellite or financial goals. Then we want to create in step 5 strategies that are aligned to helping us meet those financial goals. Step number 6, we want to determine which metrics we want to work on improvement, create smart 30,000 foot level metric goals. So for example, if we want to improve profit margins, maybe we want to reduce defective rates. Somebody owns that particular metric, so then they're going to be asking for projects to get completed. Notice how that's quite different than Lean Six Sigma traditional deployment or improvement efforts in general, where we're trying to say, hey, I can help you improve your processes. Nobody seems to care, or not many anyway. So the process owner now is asking for the project to get done, and that happens in 7. If you executed the project, you did a good job of improving your procedures and your process flow charts in the value chain in step 2, which affected your 30,000 foot level metric, which affect your satellite metrics. Now you can maintain the gain. In fact, your value chain metrics can be a means of actually acting as a control for the gains that you made through a project. Notice how also we loop back to step 3, so we got a plan to check back for the enterprise as a whole. Now, if we were to click on Enterprise Improvement Plan in this box, then we get steps from that 9-step process. If you recall, step 1, vision and mission. Step 2 is your values change. Step 3 is analyze. Then you get step 4, which is business goals. So for this hospital example, I said return reported monthly profit margins basically back to where it was at initially before the competitor moved to town. How are we going to do that? Well, I listed 3 strategies there: increase monthly revenue, customer services, satisfaction, and then reduce costs. That leads to 4 different areas of the business functions. And notice each of these functions has an owner. So the marketing manager owns that particular metric, and he or she's going to be asking for that project to get done. That's shown in step 7. Similarly for housekeeping, transportation, deliver clinical services. So now we're going to look at what you might have. If you have a recent region of stability, you say the process is predictable. If the predictive is not desirable, improvement efforts are needed. An IEE method is a means to achieve that. So an example of what you would have for an improvement effort is reduce wastage and see how that shifted to new enhanced level of performance. So we are able to achieve our goal of reducing wastage, which was one of the projects that we determined from this enterprise improvement plan, which again, this is a strategic project. Notice how often, or we can also have things occur locally for improvement, a local metric that's not strategic. That's fine, but what I'm pointing out here is something that you can do to determine and identify high potential areas that is going to benefit the business as a whole. Again, use 30,000 foot level predictive performance metric reporting for the right behaviors. Polling question 3. Which metric format would you like us to help you determine if 30,000 foot level reporting could benefit? For example, defective rates, on-time delivery, cycle times, or one of the lean wastes that are identified. So what do we have in here? Yeah, the biggest one was red, yellow, green scorecards in the previous survey.
So yeah, that's what it looks like. It's coming up again. It's definitely taking the lead there.
Okay.
Now, go ahead. We've got about half participation there, so I'll go ahead and close the poll in about 2 more seconds here. Final answer. And share this with you guys. So it looks like, yeah, again for us, we've got people are asking for the red, yellow, green scorecards to be transitioned.
Yes, and I think this would be an excellent example. If we go in and look at one of your metrics and we track that over time and put in this particular type format, and we can handle different subgroups and all sorts of things that you might be interested in, defective rates, cycle times, and so on. And then what we can do is put it together in a PowerPoint presentation, and so that you could go in and share it with others. We can make it a recorded session too, so we can talk about that later. Thank you for participating. So just to readdress the plans that I had, or the items that I planned to cover during this session, we talked about predictive metric reporting, and how you could look at things a little differently and get more information. We talked about how you could put that throughout the organization. And then we talked about how we can have this, or evaluate our enterprise as a whole to determine where we might focus our improvement efforts. So hopefully this webinar addressed the above objectives satisfactorily for you. Now, I think it's important that we build awareness. You know, sometimes we might have people say, well, this is really a decision made by my boss's boss. Well, to me, I think it's something that you should, if you believe in what we just talked about, share it with your leadership to say, hey, we might have some risks that we might have, or just in general, we want to improve profit margins or improve customer satisfaction with reduction of defective rates. So we want to share with them how we think we might be able to look at things differently by using the 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. I've looked at many scorecards, and in all honesty, I haven't seen one that I cannot get more information by looking at using this form of reporting. That's not saying there's not any out there, but I haven't seen them yet. You know, what's in it for me? You owe it to yourself, in my mind, to enhance your skill set in how you can easily examine and report using this form of reporting 30,000 foot level methodology. Kind of a simple process to do that is download that EPRS add-in. Now, you might have to work with your IT folks to help you install it, but just be persistent. It can be done. Select one KPI, and we can work with you on that to evaluate. Create the 30,000 foot level report out. Compare the conclusions from your past reporting to this form report out. Share your findings with others. So my contact information is shown here, and I can send you this various information I've listed here, which I'm sure you could really find, most of you could find to be very beneficial. So we have any questions, Yolanda?
We do have some questions, and feel free to add some more. Feel free to type in any questions that you have. If you feel like this presentation, you know, piqued your interest at any level, if you're curious just to see if, you know, the 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting might change your view about something that you're looking at on your job, let us know. Send Forrest an email. There's his email there, forrest@smartersolutions.com, or you can call us and we'll address some of these questions that we have here. We did want to go back again and look at the mini-tab add-in and how that works.
Okay.
We had a question about that.
Yeah, so we can. Okay, so if I go back into, I'm back in the mini-tab. So if I've got like data here, you know, that's column 1. So all you got to do is come back here, hit run. We've got several different options here. This has got no subgrouping. It's in column 1. You can put a title on it. You can go in and add stamp, and so we can put dates on it. You can stage it. You can do a lot of, you can ignore points. If you put a 0 there, you can override it. So you notice here it's got the description for that. You can exclude some points. You can put the upper spec limits, which I had as 1 and -1. You can emit some data. So you can do a lot of the things. But again, once you hit run on this, then the thing is you'll, oops, I'll do that. Okay, so now if you can get metrics here that you can plot out. Now, one thing what happens with our software, currently it sits with Minitab on your server, and then it goes out and pulls out the data like once a day, and then it automatically creates these metrics so now you don't have to do that all the time. But now if you look at your metric and needs staging, you can put a stage in it. And then it becomes clickable. So now you can have ready access to the information.
Great, thank you. We had one attendee who had to run for a meeting, but he was asking specifically about this software and how this works. So you're saying that this is an add-in. How does he obtain that? And this is a multiple question that he sent, but I'll ask you one by one. How does he obtain this software?
Well, you can go in and send me an email, or I can send you a link to it. But another way of doing it, and this also will show you what I'll do here. Let's go over here. Okay, if you go to I'll show you another way to get there. If you go in and go into smartersolutions.com, okay, taking longer than I'd like it to take.
And again, it's also something that what you're showing is something that we can also email out.
I don't know why it's taking so long here.
And the other part of the question is, does it sit on top of an SAP?
Yeah, no, what I'm suggesting, you'd use your SAP or any other ERP system. It would basically, because that's where you can have a lot of information available. And now we'd be going in and clicking it. So if you go into smartersolutions.com and hit resources, okay, and you got, now I want to mention here while I'm here on resources, this has got like over 300 different types of information. And I'm suggesting you could go in and link to this particular page on your website, and you'd have readily information. So what I'm going to do now is click on the online resource library. Too many things going on at one time here, it looks like. Using up all our bandwidth. Okay. And while this is loading here, to answer that question, yeah, we can. It sits on top. It doesn't replace your SAP system by any means. So we can pull data from your SAP system and or any other ERP system that you might have. Okay, now if you go in and the search and you go EPRS, search on EPRS. Okay, now you may have to, first time you got to go in and sign into our particular resource library, but then it's pretty much all free. And then what it's going to do is give you a link that you could download and actually have access to it. So now, in addition to pulling data from EPRS system, see what you got here is EPRS client right there. So if you click EPRS client, then you can go in and look and download in that particular things, and that's what you would work with your IT folks on doing. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Now, what I would do is I could send you the link to this, and so you didn't have to navigate to our website here.
If your internet speed is acting the way ours is right now.
Yeah.
Great. Well, another question we had here for us was about, just to reiterate, the message of this webinar was why use 30,000 foot level reporting, and this attendee mentioned that they're very familiar with your IEE system. Can you explain for others that aren't familiar with the IEE system briefly what exactly that Integrated Enterprise Excellence is?
Yes. Basically, Integrated Enterprise Excellence is this 9-step system. Okay, and one big aspect of it is step number 2, which is really looking at the 30,000 foot level metrics. How you look at measurements. You're looking at them from a process point of view. The other thing is strategies. Notice how strategies is step 5, it's not step 1. So, a lot of times what we do is we might be lining them to corporate strategies, executive strategies, but we really want to go in and line strategies to the financials. I was doing a session down in South America and to the executives, and they were saying, Forrest, we just did our strategic plan, it was lined to our vision and mission. Well, yeah, but don't you think it should line really to your financials? Because you're probably never going to have a strategy that's going to say reduced effective rates, but that may be the most important thing for you to do to improve your financials. So this is trying to create an overall system. Some of this, a lot you can already be doing, but it's kind of putting it all together. And I'm going in and presenting this this webinar so that if you know somebody else that might be interested in various positions in your organization, you might suggest that they go in and look at this particular webinar to get more details about how to do it. And notice I've got a lot of other information here too relative to this positive metric performance article that I can send you. That can give you a lot of insight to this overall methodology. And we also have books that have this kind of information in too. So it's really documented a lot, and we can also go in and give you a demo of this new software if you're so inclined.
Great. Well, we have time for maybe a few more questions here, but Forrest, just to kind of sum up, what you're suggesting is why we should use 30,000 foot-level predictive performance metrics is for the right behaviors. And those behaviors are supposed to lead us to more money, less time, more progress, and less risk. Anything on top of that you'd add?
Well, no, I think that summarizes it. But one of the things I've done, for people that have heard me before, this is not all new, but one thing I think that's really key on this is this metric here, or this slide here. Is we got all this scorecards, farmer scorecard, but what we really got is an elephant in the room that nobody seems to be talking about. Is there a better way? And that's what I'm really suggesting for 30,000 foot level reporting. And to me, that may be a theme that we might use to go in and convince others that there are some issues. And then, just like I said earlier, take one of your metrics, and then we can work with you on creating a 30,000 foot level report out of that will really look clean, and maybe you can present that to others to help your organization in a very critical manner.
Great. Well, thank you, Forrest. It looks like you have fully addressed all the questions that everybody's got today. If you do have further questions, there will be an opportunity to put those in the survey at the end. As you exit, there are 5 questions we have, just a quick follow-up. 4 of them are multiple choice. We'd appreciate your feedback on the survey. And also, if you send Forrest an email, send us an email, give us a call. We'd love to just kind of hear how this goes for your organization. Hope to touch base with you. Thanks again for joining, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you.